On January 29th, 2026, millions of Americans could wake up to a gun system they no longer recognize. At around 6 a.m. Eastern Time, phones start lighting up with the same chilling headline, a Supreme Court bombshell that may reshape gun permits across all 50 states. No long transition, no grace period, just impact. An estimated 18+ million legal gun owners are now asking one terrifying question. Will what's legal today become restricted tomorrow? What sounded impossible in 2024 is suddenly on the table for 2026, and firearms sitting quietly in safes could soon face federal-level pressure. Here's where the fear really begins. According to early policy discussions and court timelines expected to finalize by mid-2026, 10 of the best-selling pistols in America, models purchased by over 7 million buyers in the last 5 years alone, are now facing possible ban reviews. These aren't rare weapons, these are everyday protection tools. If the ruling path continues, buying, selling, transferring, or even carrying certain pistols after July 2026 could involve heavy restrictions, background rechecks, or outright removal from shelves. Some owners may be compliant today, and suddenly restricted in a matter of months. In this video, we break down what the Supreme Court bombshell means, which pistols are under pressure, and what every gun owner must understand before 2026 locks in. Just a few weeks ago, one of our team members received a nervous call from his grandfather in Texas. He's 71 years old, retired military, and he has owned the same pistol for nearly 30 years. Nothing flashy, nothing illegal, just a simple home defense handgun he bought in the 1990s and maintained carefully ever since. That morning, neighbors were talking about the Supreme Court ruling and possible 2026 changes. His voice was shaky when he asked, "Am I still allowed to keep what I already own?" That one sentence explains the fear spreading across America. These aren't criminals. These aren't underground dealers. These are law-abiding citizens who followed every rule, paid every fee, passed every background check, and now feel like the ground under their rights is quietly shifting. Right now, confusion is doing more damage than any law itself. Many people hear permits ending and assume it means freedom, while others assume it means bans, but the real danger sits somewhere in between. When a system resets, governments rush to replace it with new frameworks, and those frameworks almost always come with controls. Legal analysts expect that after the Supreme Court's permit decision, states will respond with fresh classifications, registration systems, and model-based reviews. Instead of regulating people, they begin regulating products. Instead of targeting criminals, they begin tightening ownership standards on tools. History shows that once a firearm model lands on a government review list, it rarely comes off without heavy conditions attached. By early March 2026, several states are expected to publish updated firearm compliance frameworks. That means new background procedures, digital filing systems, waiting periods, and transport limits. For everyday gun owners, this isn't ideology, it's logistics. Can you still buy ammo the same way? Can you still transfer your pistol to a spouse or child? Can you still carry across state lines without new paperwork? These questions don't sound dramatic, but they change daily life fast. According to ownership estimates, more than 45% of U.S. households now have at least one firearm, meaning tens of millions of families are directly affected by even the smallest federal ripple. Now here's where the story turns serious. Governments rarely begin with rare weapons. They start with what's popular. The best-selling pistols become the first targets because they're visible, traceable, and already in massive circulation. Home defense pistols, concealed carry handguns, and compact semi-automatics are usually reviewed first. In the last 5 years alone, over 7 million pistols were sold in the U.S. civilian market. That massive number creates political pressure to do something, and historically, that something turns into capacity limits, feature restrictions, licensing upgrades, or temporary freezes tied to specific models rather than people. Picture yourself walking into your local gun store in April 2026 and seeing empty racks where your trusted model once sat. Not because crime exploded, not because safety failed, but because compliance paperwork changed. Dealers are already whispering about audits, inventory holds, and recertification requirements. Some shops expect to re-register thousands of firearms before selling again. Others fear certain pistols may be labeled restricted for civilian resale. When shelves go empty, prices rise, transfers slow, and honest owners feel pressure while criminals continue operating outside the legal system without hesitation. Another fear most people ignore is retroactive pressure. Many assume new rules affect only future buyers, but that's rarely true. Legal experts warn that post-2026 compliance could include re-verification for existing owners. That may mean updated background checks, digital registration portals, renewal filings every few years, and transport reporting. For a 70-year-old owner, this isn't convenience, it's anxiety. Miss a deadline, fill a form wrong, move across state lines. Suddenly your record flags non-compliance even though you never committed a crime. That's how good people accidentally fall into legal trouble. Here's the part mainstream news doesn't explain clearly. When permits end, responsibility doesn't disappear, it shifts. Instead of permits controlling people, laws begin controlling products. That's why these 10 best-selling pistols are under pressure. Not because owners failed, but because systems restructure quietly. Once a model enters legislative discussion, manufacturers redesign, retailers pause sales, and owners watch their rights slowly transform into conditions. Freedom rarely disappears overnight. It shrinks silently, rule by rule, form by form, month by month, until people realize too late that ownership now feels more like a lease. As summer 2026 approaches, the biggest mistake gun owners make is ignoring updates. People assume nothing will change until it actually does. They don't check state portals. They don't track model reviews. They don't verify transport classifications. That's exactly how honest citizens get caught off guard. One day your pistol is normal. The next day it requires registration tier upgrades. The next month it needs transport documentation. Then suddenly you're told you can't sell it, modify it, or transfer it without government approval. The real fear isn't confiscation. The real fear is confusion, because confusion turns legal owners into accidental violators. Let's talk about how this pressure builds in stages. First comes classification. Regulators group pistols by size, capacity, firing system, and carry purpose. Then comes review. They analyze crime data, popularity, and market circulation. After that comes restriction proposals, such as magazine limits, feature adjustments, or licensing upgrades. Finally comes enforcement timelines. By the time owners hear about it on the news, the policy work is already months old. That's why many people in 2026 will feel blindsided even though the system quietly moved long before headlines appeared. Another layer people forget is interstate travel. Millions of Americans carry firearms legally across state borders every year for work, family visits, hunting, and relocation. When permit systems shift, reciprocity agreements shift too. That means what's legal in one state may suddenly need extra documentation in another. A truck driver moving through 3 states in 1 week might face 3 different compliance standards by mid-2026. That's not safety, that's complexity, and complexity is what traps ordinary citizens in violations without criminal intent. Then there's the economic side. The firearms industry employs hundreds of thousands of people across manufacturing, retail, logistics, and training. When best-selling pistols face review freezes, factories slow down, shops pause orders, and local gun stores struggle to stay open. That means fewer safety courses, fewer certified instructors, and fewer legal access points for responsible ownership. Ironically, when legal markets tighten, illegal markets grow. Because criminals never wait for approval. They adapt faster than lawmakers expect. One of the quietest fears is inheritance. Millions of families pass firearms from parent to child as personal protection tools, not collectibles. Under new compliance structures, inheritance transfers may require legal processing, digital filings, and waiting approvals. A son receiving his father's pistol after 40 years of ownership may suddenly need to navigate paperwork that never existed before. Without guidance, families risk accidental violations during moments that are already emotional and stressful. Another issue rarely discussed is data centralization. New 2026 frameworks may rely heavily on digital registration portals. That means ownership data moves online, tied to ID numbers, addresses, and renewal schedules. While this increases tracking efficiency, it also increases exposure to mistakes, system outages, cyber risks, and bureaucratic delays. Owners may submit paperwork and wait weeks for confirmation while their legal status hangs in limbo. During that waiting period, uncertainty becomes the new normal. What makes this situation more intense is timing. America is already dealing with inflation, housing costs, medical bills, and retirement pressure. Adding sudden legal restructuring on personal security tools multiplies stress. A retired couple living on fixed income doesn't want to worry about renewal fees, transport rules, and re-verification deadlines just to keep what they already own. Yet that's exactly what post-2026 compliance may demand. Now imagine the emotional side. People buy firearms for protection, not politics. Parents want safety. Seniors want peace of mind. Workers want reliability. When rules suddenly feel unstable, trust breaks down. Owners stop feeling protected by the system and start feeling watched by it. That shift in psychology is powerful. Once fear replaces confidence, people react emotionally instead of rationally, and that's when misinformation spreads faster than law itself. That's why preparation matters more than panic. Smart owners in 2025 and early 2026 are already tracking state updates, following court schedules, and understanding how classifications work. They're not waiting for headlines. They're studying timelines. They're checking dealer notices. They're staying legal before legality becomes complicated. Because when laws move fast, the people who survive comfortably are the ones who understand the system before the system understands them. And as 2026 gets closer, one thing becomes clear. This Supreme Court bombshell isn't just about permits. It's about transformation. It's about how ownership, safety, freedom, and responsibility quietly change shape in modern America. And in the next part, we're going deeper. We'll examine the categories regulators look at first, the warning signs your pistol might be reviewed, how compliance timelines really work, and what responsible owners are quietly doing right now before 2026 officially locks these changes into everyday life. If you want, I can expand this even more into a full documentary-length script, add the 10 pistol story segments, or push the tone more cinematic, aggressive, or news anchor style. Just tell me how far you want to take it. As regulators move deeper into 2026 planning, another quiet shift is happening behind closed doors. Committees aren't just looking at guns anymore, they're looking at behavior patterns. How often people buy, how often they travel with firearms, how frequently models appear in reports. That data becomes the backbone for future control. Once a pistol model shows up repeatedly in statistics, even if the owner is legal, it gets flagged for public safety review. That phrase sounds harmless, but in reality, it's the first step toward restriction. It doesn't mean the gun is dangerous, it means it's visible, and visibility is what lawmakers react to first. One store owner in Arizona recently explained how this feels on the ground. He's been in business for 22 years, survived recessions, pandemics, and market crashes. But he said the fear now is different. Suppliers are asking questions instead of shipping products. Distributors are delaying deliveries. Manufacturers are quietly redesigning parts to stay ahead of regulations that aren't even finalized yet. When the industry starts moving before the law does, that's a sign something serious is coming. It creates a chain reaction where availability drops before any official ban ever appears. By May 2026, analysts expect preliminary compliance bulletins to circulate between states. These bulletins don't make headlines, but they shape enforcement. They outline which features get attention first: magazine capacity, trigger systems, concealability, aftermarket modifications, and carry classifications. A pistol doesn't have to be illegal to become inconvenient. Sometimes all it takes is one added step, one extra form, one new fee, and ownership becomes stressful instead of simple. And stress pushes people away from legal markets into confusion. There's also a generational problem nobody talks about. Younger owners who bought pistols in the last 5 years grew up with digital systems. Older owners didn't. When everything moves online, seniors struggle. Uploading documents, renewing digitally, tracking deadlines, verifying transport permissions. These aren't natural habits for a 68-year-old retiree who bought his firearm with a paper receipt in 1998. When systems change fast, they don't hurt criminals. They hurt people who play by the rules but aren't tech-savvy. One woman from Florida recently shared how her husband passed away and left her his pistol for home safety. Under future frameworks, inheritance transfers may require digital approval, waiting verification, and classification checks. What used to be a simple family process may become a legal maze. She didn't want to sell it. She didn't want to modify it. She just wanted to keep what protected her for years. But under shifting laws, even standing still requires movement through paperwork. Another hidden layer is insurance. Some compliance proposals being discussed include liability coverage linked to firearm ownership. That means owners may one day need policy numbers attached to registrations, just like cars. On paper, it sounds reasonable, but in reality, it adds cost. A fixed-income senior suddenly paying annual compliance fees, insurance fees, renewal fees, and training certifications feels financial pressure for something they already legally own. Rights don't disappear. They become subscriptions. Then there's transportation. In 2026, moving a pistol may not be as simple as locking it and driving. Transport rules could differ by state classification, magazine configuration, and travel purpose. A man driving from Nevada to California for a family emergency might suddenly face different storage rules, declaration requirements, and travel documentation. Miss one requirement and the legal line becomes blurry fast. The law doesn't ask if your intent was good, it asks if your form was complete. Manufacturers are watching closely. Some companies are already investing millions into compliance-friendly designs. Smaller frames, limited capacity variants, serialized components, and smart lock integrations are becoming common in future blueprints. While innovation sounds good, it also signals fear. When companies redesign for survival instead of improvement, it means the regulatory storm is already visible on the horizon. Another psychological shift is happening among owners themselves. People stop asking, "Is this safe?" and start asking, "Is this still allowed?" That change in mindset is powerful. Safety becomes secondary to legality, and legality becomes unstable. When rules feel unpredictable, people lose confidence in the system and rely more on rumor than regulation. That's how misinformation spreads, and misinformation is often more dangerous than bad policy. By late 2026, states may roll out synchronized enforcement phases. That means not everything hits at once. First come registration updates, then transport rules, then resale restrictions, then modification limits. Each phase feels small by itself, but together they transform ownership quietly. People rarely panic over one new form. They panic when they realize they've filled out 10 forms in 1 year just to keep the same object. Consider the resale market. Millions of owners sell, trade, or upgrade pistols every year. Under future frameworks, private transfers could require licensed intermediaries, verification portals, and waiting periods even between family members. That slows legal movement while illegal movement stays fast. Markets don't like friction, and when legal markets slow, underground ones grow stronger without anyone intending it. Training requirements may also expand. Some proposals include periodic certification to renew carry or transport privileges. Again, on paper, it's safety. In reality, it's scheduling, fees, travel, and time pressure. A working parent with 2 jobs doesn't have time to attend repeated certification sessions just to keep what they already passed checks for years ago. Compliance becomes a lifestyle instead of a one-time responsibility. Another rarely discussed angle is rural versus urban impact. Rural owners rely on firearms for livestock protection, wildlife control, and long-distance response times. When centralized rules treat all areas the same, rural residents feel punished for city-based problems. A farmer in Montana doesn't face the same environment as a resident in downtown Los Angeles, but compliance systems rarely care about geography. One size starts fitting nobody. And then there's trust. When people feel laws change without clear explanation, they stop trusting updates. They stop reading official portals. They stop believing announcements. They rely on friends, forums, and social media. That's when panic rumors beat real information. One bad post spreads faster than 10 good policies. Fear grows faster than clarity. That's why storytelling matters here. Not to scare people blindly, but to show them how change actually happens. It's not one ban, it's 1,000 small shifts. It's not confiscation, it's complication. It's not force, it's paperwork. It's not fear, it's fatigue. By the time someone realizes the system feels heavy, it's already built around them. That's what makes 2026 important. It's not the year of explosion. It's the year of transformation. Ownership becomes management, freedom becomes administration, safety becomes compliance, and smart owners already understand that preparation beats reaction. They monitor state releases, they understand classification language, they track court schedules, they keep documentation organized, they learn transport standards, they treat legality like maintenance, not panic. Because when the system changes quietly, the people who stay calm, informed, and ahead don't just survive legally, they stay confident. And confidence is what separates responsible ownership from stressful ownership. As we move forward, the next section breaks down how regulators identify pistol categories, what warning signs appear before restrictions, how timelines are actually implemented, and what practical steps responsible owners are already taking before the rest of the country realizes 2026 has already begun shaping everyday life.